Alright, well, welcome to the second seminar now for MRC. This one's on Qt programming, C++ GUIs. I wrote some Arduino code to simplify this seminar a bit, and it's at this link here. You can go to this link here and download it. It looks like this. I would suggest just downloading the zip file and unzipping it, and inside there is 2 folders, one of which has Arduino code in it. And then grab your Arduino and upload it. Upload this INO file to the Arduino. I've already done that, and that's what this little guy is here. So I'll show you. Well, let's talk about Qt for a second. So, does anyone know what Qt is? No?
I know what it is.
I know you do. Alright, so it's I call it a C++ framework. There's an argument over whether or not it's a library or a framework, but I would call it a framework since it generates code and it's got separate build tools other than just C++. But it's mainly used for GUIs programs like application windows and stuff. But it's really nice tool to use for programming. I love it in comparison to other languages, and it's cross-platform, so the code that you write should run on Linux or Mac with minimal code changes, and it's just plain C++, so you get the benefit of a compiled language and not C# or Python or anything, or Java. So it has a bunch of libraries. Most people think of it as just a GUI library, but it also has a lot of other features. It has a class for almost everything. Nowadays they have, they're marketing towards embedded applications like embedded car infotainment systems and that kind of stuff. But for today we'll just be using it to write a general desktop GUI application. Alright, so this Arduino code I have written is, I actually don't have Arduino on this computer. Let me download it real quick.
Don't you already have it uploaded to the board though?
Yeah.
What do you need Arduino for?
Yeah, you're right, I don't actually. So this is my Arduino COM3. It's a serial COM port. It's like a virtual COM port. Back in the 90s, I don't know, some of you might have remembered like the big DB9 connectors for like plugging in your printer or even your mouse and keyboard. So nowadays you can virtualize that over a USB port, and that's how an Arduino uses to upload code back and forth between the computer and the device, and many other tools use that as well. So in this seminar I'm going to show how to communicate from your GUI application, which is a program that runs just like this device manager. This is a GUI application, and communicate with an Arduino through a serial port. Now it doesn't have to be an Arduino, it could be an STM32 or some other device, you know, a Linux computer that has a serial port. The application is the same thing. So I'm going to open up a PuTTY instance, which is just a terminal application. Harold, do you know how to tell it don't send stuff until you hit enter? Does anyone know how to do that? Because usually when you type, it sends the character immediately.
That's telnet.
That's telnet?
Yeah, telnet does that. Well, telnet does the thing where you send it immediately.
Alright, we'll try it. Let me see. So my COM port is COM3, and the baud rate is 11,5200. That's bits per second. So here's my terminal application. You can see it outputting this string, and it's just generating random numbers for this application, but it could be a temperature sensor or an RPM meter or a voltage divider or a current sensor or anything you can think of outputting this data from your Arduino. In this sense, in this application, I'm formatting it in a specific manner so that it makes it easier for me to decode in the GUI application. So you notice I've got key and then value, key and value, key and value, and all the keys and values are separated by commas. Doesn't matter what separates it. It could be a space or a semicolon or something, but it has to be something that's always the same. This is a part of your application that you'll kind of develop on your own and decide how you want to do it. This is completely up to you. This is how I chose to do it. So you can also send it information. I don't know if this will work from here because of what I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I don't think it will. Anyways, if I send rate and then a semicolon and a number like 100 or 200, it will change the rate at which it sends this value out. And
why don't you use real term?
I don't have real term.
Oh. Download it real quick.
I'm just gonna download. I'm just gonna run my Qt app that already does this.
Alright, yeah.
So if you guys want to save time, you can just run this code. Did I download it? Oh, I gotta download it. So this is this code folder that's on the on that website. After you unzip it, and inside of that is 2 more folders. One of which is Arduino code. The other one's the Qt seminar code. I don't want to go into the Arduino code too much. This isn't really about the Arduino stuff, but more about the Qt stuff. So here's my Qt project file. And I'll just show you this. We're going to rewrite this. I just figured I'd show you now before we go there. So this is Qt Creator. This is their IDE, just like Visual Studio has, or Microsoft has Visual Studio. It's a direct competitor to Visual Studio. It's Qt Creator. And in my opinion, it's a lot better, faster and simpler, and just everything just works. There's not so many little caveats with Visual Studio. So you can literally just drag and drop widgets on here. You can also do it programmatically, like with code, and tell it, I want a label here and this and that. But Qt Creator allows you to just drop like a button on the screen. I want a button there. So earlier today I made this, and what it does is, oh come on, what's wrong? I guess it doesn't want to compile now. So we'll just rewrite it. I'll leave this open. Alright, so if any of you that are following along, you go back to the welcome page here in Qt Creator after you have it open. And we're going to hit new project. And you can do console application, and GUI application, which is that, you know, what we're talking about today, the GUI. But you can also make console applications. And there's a bunch of other types of applications like Qt Quick, which is a kind of like an HTML-like language for making GUIs. It's if anyone's familiar with XAML from Visual Studio, it's the competitor to that, essentially. But we're going to do Qt Widgets application, and I'm going to call it Qt. I'm going to call it MRC Qt Seminar.
Cullen,
Yeah.
do these GUIs work with Android?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of them. There's a lot of build steps to Android, but yeah, I think
You can build for Android Target.
you can, but it's a lot more complicated. Like when you download the app, you have to have this whole library downloaded with it, and not a lot of people want to do that when they download your app, you know. So it's a trade-off of learning Java
It's not Java.
or requiring your downloader to do that, you know. But it also works with Windows CE, embedded Linux, Symbian, all kinds of obscure operating systems. That's like their big claim to fame, is that they're cross-platform. So I'm going to make a folder in my documents where I put all of my Qt projects. We can look at some of these later if you're interested. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to name it the same thing I named my project. I'm going to select that folder. So you see like MRC Qt Seminar, and it's created in MRC Qt Seminar. These are your compilers. They call them kits. I think kit applies debuggers and a lot of other build steps into the kit. It's not just a compiler, it's a lot of other stuff. If you don't have Visual Studio, you won't have this here, or at least it won't work when you try to compile with it. And then MingGW is another compiler that is open source, I think. It's different than Visual Studio. And I think this comes with Qt by default, or Qt Creator.
It's the default one.
Yeah, and it works. It's what I use half the time. So we're going to hit next. And then here it's asking you for a base class for your GUI. So this is your class that represents your widget. It's that surface that has all the buttons and everything. And there's two different, everything, is everyone familiar with like C++ and like class inheritance and stuff like that? A little bit, yeah? Okay. Okay, so in C++ you can have, here, let's get an image. That's probably better.
You don't get that with MATLAB.
You don't get classes with MATLAB.
No, you don't. It's pretty crappy.
Okay, so here's a good example. So you have an object, right? And then you have entities that are both objects, but entity isn't an object, you know, and so on. It goes down like that. So in Qt we have the base class, which is actually QObject, and then you have a QWidget, which is like the paintable part, and then from there they created subclasses, which was QDialog and QMainWindow, and I think there's a couple other like QWindow now, and QSurface or QPaintSurface or something. But in our application, we don't need all of this, you know, top menu bars and status bars and stuff. So a dialog is just like a plain blank surface, and that's it. And
This with the strict schools.
yeah, that's all we need here. And I'm going to leave the name the same, the class name, and hit next. This is if you have a project management, like a Git server that you want to sync to, and we don't, so I'm going to hit finish. And it generates the code for us.
So you can have this so that it will automatically push updates?
Yeah, yeah. It's all integrated with a bunch of stuff like that. I think you go to diff. I don't know. Never done it before, but it's all integrated nice like that. So this is our blank project. Ignore this here. This is the other project. So it's just this part here. So it gives you a project file, and inside of that is some ancient Egyptian looking stuff that maybe we don't know much about, but essentially it's a file that Qt is going to parse when you build your project, and it's going to build more files so that you can use the C++ Qt libraries.
It's just its make file.
Yeah, it's like its make file. It's QMake file.
Very high level.
Yeah. So if you know what CMake is and make file is, it makes a Q file or QMake file or project file, and then it creates a CMake file, and then it creates a make file from that, and then eventually you get to C++, just GCC compilation. But this file tells the Qt compiler what's in the application and what it's for and stuff like that. Like you can call this a service instead of an application, or you can add modules like networking if you need to talk on the network, or you can do paint support for graphing. What we're going to do is put serial port, because we need the serial port libraries. And then once you change this, it might take a while, but Qt will automatically reparse this file and do some stuff in the background to allow you to use those modules. And I think it's doing it now. Yeah, there it goes, parsing C++ files. And if it doesn't do that, you can come up here to build and press run QMake. And there it goes, it finished. Alright, so now we have our serial port included in our project. So we're going to go to our H file. Well, actually, let me explain. Let's go back to the web and show you something. So this is Qt's serial port class reference. It'll tell you all the functions and methods and stuff that are in the class. Apparently the internet wants to go slow today. Yeah, so here, Qt serial port C++ classes. So it has a class called serial port and Q serial port info. And as the name suggests, this is just information about the port and not actually the port or methods to communicate with the port. It just gives you information like available ports or standard baud rates or a bunch of other stuff. So we click on that, you can see in here all the, here, like you got port name, manufacturer, product ID. Every USB device has a product ID and a VID, which is vendor ID and product ID. And companies have to purchase these codes. They're their property and their IP. So when Windows, for instance, sees a new device plugged in, it knows it's this manufacturer and this product, and it knows which driver to use. So this class allows you to access those IDs, as well as check to see if it has an ID or if it's busy and manufacturer or whatever. These are the two things we're going to use: the available ports and the standard baud rates. Alright, so what we're going to do is include that class in our header file for our dialog. And include Q serial port info. And then, okay, so also, Qt has something called signal and slots. Does anyone know what that is? Have you ever heard of that? No?
From you.
From me? Okay. It's a pretty interesting thing. It's kind of, I think other languages have this. Java specifically might have this. I'm not sure. But
Android does it this way.
Android does it? Okay. So I have no idea how it does it under the hood. I'm sure it's really complicated, but it allows you to asynchronously connect two nodes together. So you have a signal and you connect that to slots or multiple or single slots, and when that signal is emitted or triggered, the slot will be called, and then you can run some code that needs to run. And it's a very useful application. Instead of having to pull things, you can just wait for the signal to come and do your thing when it needs to happen. So here what we're going to do is we're going to make a slot, and Qt adds keywords into C++. So if you use C++, you might be saying, hey Cullen, what's a public slot? So I've never seen that before. But that's Qt specific stuff. Under the hood, I don't know what they do, but they do it. Alright, so I'm going to call void update ports. Boom. So that's my function prototype for my update ports slot. And Qt allows you to refactor code very easily. You just right click on the header file function prototype, go to factor, refactor. Why isn't it? Huh, that's weird. Okay, well I guess Qt today doesn't want to do that.
Yeah,
So,
you get options when I click on it. You get like rename symbol under cursor, add definition and dialog.
yeah,
CVP.
that's it. Add definition under CVP file. So in my case, I'm just gonna have to copy it over here. Boo-hoo.
That took an extra 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, actually, more than that, because we had to figure out the example the first time.
Okay, so inside this code, or inside this function called update ports, we are going to put the code that updates the display on how many ports are available and the standard baud rates that are available. So first what we need to do is we need something to put them in, right? So in your application you may want a list view or just a text edit or something. It's completely up to you. You can put this in anything you want. But what I'm going to do is put it in, what I usually do is put it in a combo box. Oh no, wait, that's a group box. Where's my combo box? You can actually filter. I'll just do that. There it is. It looks like that. And then make sure you rename them over here. So I'm going to call this com box. This is the com port box. And then we need one more. I'm going to rename this baud box for the baud rates. Pretty descriptive names, I know. And then I'm going to throw some labels on here. If you double click on it, you can change the text. I'm going to say port. I'm going to put another one. Double click on it. Say baud. Oop. And you should name these, but I'm not going to use them in my code, so I might not label them, but I'll do it anyways. So I'll call that port label. It's good practice to name them all. Baud label. Alright, now we have layouts. So we can, right now we can just drag this around, and if we run this, please run. Come on. Alright, so see, it's just kind of everywhere, and if you shrink the file, it goes away. This doesn't work, you know. It's not reactive. So what we're going to do is apply some layouts to it. So we can select the things we want to lay out, and up here in the top left, or top, you have layout horizontally or layout vertically. So vertically is going to put them on top of each other, horizontally is going to put them next to each other. So that's what we want. We want horizontally. We'll do that for these too. If I'm going too fast, just let me know to slow down though. Alright, then we need 3 buttons.
Can you show me the layout again?
Yeah, so you just select the 2 things that you want to lay out, and then you come up here. Mine's not selected anymore, but you'd hit horizontal, layout horizontally. So I made a connect button. Rename that. And then you could actually do 1 button for both disconnect and connect. But it's more code to write, so I'll just put 2 of them. And then we need a refresh button. And name that. And then apply a layout to that. I'll throw a vertical spacer in here. I'll click the whole window and lay out vertically. Shrink this up, and then I don't like this space here. So all of these widgets, these are all called widgets, right? And all of them have these properties that you can adjust in this window down here. For instance, you can add icons or change the text or make it editable. This is a very popular, useful property. This is the size policy. So you can tell it to have a fixed horizontal size or a preferred horizontal size or an expanding. In my application, I'm going to make it expanding. That way it when you resize the window, it expands instead of the port label. I think there's also a way to set it so that it's in increments so that those 2 line up, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Alright, so now we have everything labeled, everything set up, and next we're going to write the code to add the COM ports into here. Good? Alright. So back to our update ports function. So one nice thing about Qt is it has a very good help system. So if you're wondering where I know all of these function names and classes, you can just hover over this, put your cursor there, and hit the F1 button, and Qt will open up this help window here, and you can say, oh, okay, this class has product identifier or serial number method. In this case, I see there is a function called available ports that returns a queue list of queue serial port infos. So I'm going to copy this over. And I'm going to call this ports list equals queue serial port info. And it's a member of that called available ports. And in Qt specifically, I think C++ has this too by default, but only in C++ 11 does it have a for each. So if anyone's been familiar with C#, it has a for each function instead of using a for loop. You can use a for loop here, but I like using the for each function here. So I'm going to say for each queue serial port info port in my ports list. So what will this do? This will go through every single port info class that's inside this list and allow me to access it with this port. This is the same thing as writing for int I equals 0, I is less than ports list dot size I think it's
Or you
count
should go a lot
actually.
More elegant.
Yep. And then you go
You need to iterate through.
I++, and then you can access it with
works like QList container types
I. Yeah.
or QString list.
And now you can access everything from that specific thing. So that's a nice add-on with Qt. So here what we're going to do is we're going to go UI, which is the namespace for our GUI class. So Qt generated a C++ class called UI that has all of these widgets in it that we can access. To access those, you call UI, which is a Q widget, I believe. Oh, it's a dialog. Okay. So we're going to hit UI, and if you hit dot and it's already a pointer, it will set up that access. I don't know what you call that type of access identifier or whatever, but
Pointer access.
pointer access. There you go. So UI dot, and we're going to go combox dot add item, and here we're going to say port dot port name, and that's it.
Auto-completes pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, pretty much. Just control space like it's every other thing you push.
And then we're going to make a Q list of QInt32s. Notice there's a Q everything. It's like a Q string, a QInt, a QUint.
Yeah, the Q ints are a bit ridiculous. I'll just use the standard int.
There's like a Q pointer. There's all kinds of different stuff. Yeah. Alright, so we're going to call this baud list. And that's going to be equal to the Q serial port info standard baud rates.
I think QInt32 is literally just somewhere defined as like int32 underscore t.
Yeah.
Just gonna add this for
Alright, we're going to do the same thing for the baud box. Dot add item. And here, the com box can only take a string. You can't put an integer in there or another type. So we have to convert this Q integer into a string before we plug it in there. So the Q string class has a member called number, which converts numbers to strings. So we'll just go baud inside of that. So now baud will be converted to a Q string and added to the baud box and displayed. Also, we have to clear this list because this may be called a number of times during your program, and you're only adding items, you're not replacing them. So what we have to do is do ui.combox.clear and ui.baudbox.clear. Now you probably could, because you only need to do this once. Standard baud rates don't change during your program, or I don't think they should.
Cullen?
Yeah.
So with that add item,
Yeah.
with the Q string number baud, are you declaring a variable there, or is it just the type?
I guess you could say you're declaring a variable. Yeah.
Like it's type Q string. Is that just?
Yeah. This is the class Q string has a member called number. So I think what you're doing is you're constructing it. You could also do Q string.
Yeah, well, that's a static. That's a static declaration.
Number like that. I think that would work as well. You're essentially doing the same thing.
Yeah, when you do colon to the number, that's called using the static function.
Okay.
And then this baud rates list has a million different baud rates. It's crazy. So I know off the top of my head that 12 is the correct index for 115200. So usually what I do is I set the current index, ui.baudbox.set current index to 12. That way every time you run your program, it will just default to that 115200 so that you don't have to go through there and select it every time. So now notice we made this function, but we're not using it anywhere. So the first thing we want to do is we want it to call this function as soon as the program opens, so that we can populate all these things into our box. So in this constructor here, this is where the program will enter our class, right? It'll construct the class. So right after UI.set, you don't want to do it before this because it hasn't set up these objects. You want to do it after this, because notice the UI setup UI, these won't be available until this is done. So we're going to call update ports, and now if we run this, notice we get our ports populated and our baud rates populated. So who wants a baud rate of 110? So that's why we do the little set index thing. So notice also, this is kind of annoying. I don't want refresh to be the default thing that is selected when I run my program. And you can change that quite easily by going to your widget or your layout here, and you select edit buddies. Oh no, wait, it's edit tab order, yeah. So you say this is the first one I want to select, and then
Can you go back to your code just for one moment?
yeah. We're all having fun? Yeah, this is fun, huh? Yeah. Alright. So what we can do is we can tell Qt which widgets come in which order. So we want connect, and then I want port, baud, refresh, and disconnect. So now if I run this, notice it selects the connect button first. And if I hit tab, it will go to the port, the baud, the refresh, and the disconnect. So you can change that very easily. Alright, so we got that figured out. Now we can, to go back to where you were, you just come back here and select this edit widgets. Another thing we might want to do is have a close button. So I'm going to put a button down here and press close, or type close, and I'm going to change the button to close button. And here we don't have to write any code for this, we can just do signals and slots straight from here. So we go edit signals and slots, we select the signal widget, and then here you can connect it to other objects here, or other widgets, but in our case we want it to go to ground, which is our parent, I guess, our widget. So we'll just select there. We'll say when the button is clicked, I want to show all the signals and slots inherited, and I want to close. Okay. Then we can go back to edit widgets, and now if we run this, we hit close, it'll automatically close. So inside the widget, the dialog class for this GUI, it made a signals and slots connection to do that automatically. So we didn't have to write that code. We could have though. Alright, so now we wanted to, have it refresh when we press this button. So now we have to either right click and go to slot, which is our function that is called when we click this button. So every time we click the refresh button, this function here will be called. And inside this function we want to call the update ports method. And now if we run this, notice COM3 is there. But if I unplug my Arduino and hit refresh, it's gone. Plug it back in, hit refresh, and it's there. You could also put a timer in here to do this automatically. That's up to you. You can do that.
Yeah, really just a queue timer, then set it its timer, you can start it.
Yeah.
Next slot, that's it.
So I'm also going to make slots for these other two buttons. And there's other slots here too, like not just clicked. You can have when you pressed and when you released, when it changes state, when it was destroyed, all different types of methods. But here we just want it to be clicked. Alright, so now we have our serial port class showing all of our available ports and our available baud rates. And we can select which one, we can refresh it. So now we want to use that Q serial port class instead of the info class to actually talk to the serial port. So you could actually just write all the code in these functions, but usually what I like to do is make a separate class for this and create all the functions inside that class so it's a little easier to communicate with. So to add a new class to your project, you're going to right click on your project up here and go add new. Then we're going to select the C++ class. The base class is going to be QObject, and I'm going to call this serial interface. So that's the class name that will be in your source code. You could call it, like if you were making a robot, right, or a quadcopter or a CNC machine or something. You know, I would probably call it like CNC interface or quad interface or like Herald interface.
That's the one named correctly.
Yeah, I know. Alright. Again, we don't want to add it to any project management tools. And now it just added a header file and a C++ file, or implementation file, and then inside our project file, it also added it to the sources and headers section. We can also add more forms. If we wanted a separate window to pop up every so often, we can right click up here, go add new, and I want to make a Qt designer form class, and that's what this UI dialog is. But we don't want to do that. We just want this simple widget. Alright, so inside of our header file for our new class, we want to include the Q serial port class, not the info version, the port one. And we need a private section. We're going to make an object or an instance of a Q serial port class, and I'm going to call it mport or my port. And I'm going to copy this, bring it over into the CPP implementation file. Inside the constructor for this class, I'm going to initialize it to a new Q serial port. And this is another cool thing about Qt. It has a structure of parents and children. So this here in the constructor takes a QObject as its parent. By default it's null. But if you give it a parent, when that parent is deleted, it will also delete its children. So it's easier for memory management. Like if you close your main widget and it has all these children, all the children will be destroyed at the same time. You don't have to physically go and delete them all. It will do it automatically. Sometimes you can't do that if you're threading or you don't want it to be a global class in your object, but for the most part you can. So now we've initialized our mport, and we need a couple slots. So yeah.
Just two questions. Sorry, I'm a little behind.
Yeah.
One, could you show me again how you put in the vertical spacers in the UI?
So you just drop a vertical spacer on here.
Okay, cool. Then, also just where did you start that new project from, or that new
Class.
class? Yeah.
You right click up on your project folder, and you go to add new.
Okay.
C++, C++ class.
Thank you.
Alright, so I'm going to make a section called private slots. And these will connect to the serial ports signals class. So I'm going to make a slot called onReadyRead. So this function, or this slot, will be called whenever there's new data in the buffer available to be read. So you don't have to pull it now. It'll just tell you, hey, there's new stuff in the buffer. Come read it. So let's see if this works now. Nope. Something wrong with my queue today.
We never had that problem before.
Me neither. This is a bug.
Reboot your computer.
Yeah, it should probably just reboot. It's Windows. Alright, so now we can, we've made this slot, but we haven't connected it yet. We have to connect the signal to the slot. To do that, we use a function called connect. And there's a new method to do this, and I haven't completely mastered it yet. So we're going to use the old method. So what you do is first you give it the signal object, the object that's sending the signal. And in this case, it's the serial port class. And then you do comma, and you do this signal keyword. I think this is a macro.
We want to, it's actually, it's really easy. It's just you do the pointer to the actual function in that class.
Yeah, that's why I tried it the other day. It didn't work. I guess we can try it. Alright, so connect, import, and we do reference to Q serial port. Damn. Ready read. And then we do this, reference to dialog, no wait, serial interface on ready read. This is how you do it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Alright, good. So that's the new method. You should try to use this method. This is the newly approved, cute way of connecting signals and slots.
I don't really like it much though, because the other way when you use signal, the command lists all the signals.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then
But
like this doesn't do that. But
if you notice, if you go like, it'll show all the methods, but
yeah, but
these things,
yeah, the icons are different.
the icons are different. Yeah, I think those are signals.
Filters them though. Like it filters only to like signals though.
Yeah.
I don't like that. This doesn't do it that way.
Okay, so this is where you need to know what you're communicating with, right? So in our case, it's always sending a string, and it ends with a new line, which is \n. So the Q serial port class has a method called canReadLine, and it'll tell you if there's a whole line to be read. So what I'm going to do is check to see if mport.canReadLine. This will return a Boolean, and if it can't read a line, because sometimes only half the string will come in, and you'll call this function, and you won't have all the data yet. So you want to wait for it all to come into the buffer, and then read it out. All right. So this if function is only going to if statement. It's only going to be run if we have a whole line. So now what we can do is we can do qstring in string is equal to mport.read all.
Don't you want read line?
Yeah, you can do read line.
Because there may be additional stuff after that first line,
Yeah.
and it may not be a complete line.
I think there's a read line, right? Yeah. Alright, now if you're used to C++, you know about the cout functions. You can use that in Qt as well, but Qt has a better class called QDebug. And it gives you a number of different stream methods like that. Like you've got QDebug, of course. So we're going to output the in string. And actually we're going to output a just read this from port. So now every time we have new data in the buffer, it will call this function and it will check to see if it can read a whole line. If it can, it will read the whole line into this in string variable, and then it'll output it onto the QDebug stream right before this. Now the QDebug class also has a couple other ones like QWarning, which you can filter for after. Or you have QFatal, I think. Yep. So in your code, you can use that functionality to, your heart's content. All right. So now we have this ready read signal, but we haven't connected to the port yet. We have the method to read in data, but we have to tell the class what port it is and what baud rate it is and all that other crap with serial ports. So in my header file, I need a public method, and it's going to return a boolean, and it's going to say called open, and it's going to take a Q string, which is port, and a Q string, which is baud. We'll do the conversion locally. Oh, now it's there. Okay, good. Alright, so we'll go, what you should do is do error checking to see if mport is open. I'm not going to do that today. So mport.set port name. We're going to pass it the port. mport.set baud rate. baud.to int. So there's a number of things we have to change here. In my application, I'm always, the only things that will change potentially is the baud rate and the COM port name. But in other applications, you might need to set the data bits or the stop bits or the parity or flow control. So in this application, we need to tell it those things. I'm going to say import.set data bits. I'm going to do Q serial port. It's an enum or enumeration of the Q serial port, and it's data 5, 6, 7, or 8. We want 8. Set flow control. No flow control. We want to set the parity. 1. Wait, it's
No parity.
no parity, yeah. And 1 stop bit. I think that's everything we have to set. Yeah. Alright, now we can go if not import.open, and here we have to tell it that we're reading and writing. when we open it. So you can do read only, write only, but in our case we're gonna read write. Alright, if it can't open, we are gonna return false. And the nice thing about signals and slots here is you could have a signal called connected, and every time the connection state changes, you can emit that and say, okay, you know, we just disconnected. So you could put, we don't have a signal yet, but you could say emit on connected, and you can pass it true here, or false actually. Or you can emit an error so that your parent objects can handle an error. And then if it does open, we are going to return true. And I think that's all we got to do for this class now. You following along, Travis? You still need this? Okay. Grab some coffee.
And that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
Bob's your uncle. Sharp forgetting players. It's a Bobby Dazzler. Bobby Dazzler. I'll plug in all the coffee. My coffee. I'm drinking 30 out of coffee.
All right, let's continue on. Our exploration of Qt Creator. Next, we will implement the connection method in our class. So we're going to, oh wait, we already created this, never mind. So we're going to go to our dialog.cpp, and inside our slot for the connection button, we are, oh wait, we have to do something else. Alright, so we have to go to the header file of our dialog, and we have to include this class we just created. So pound include serial interface. Down in our private section, we need a serial interface pointer to S interface. Inside of our dialog's constructor, we are going to do that after. Equals new serial interface. Give it this as the parent. Alright, now we have a serial interface. In the connect button, we're going to go is or S interface dot open, and we're going to pass it the currently selected string in the COM box. So we're going to go UI dot COM box dot current text, and then we also have to pass it the baud rate. So UI dot baud box dot current text. Damn it. So this should be enough to see it outputting data now. So if I run this, select the right COM port and connect. Here's my strings coming in. So just read this from port, blah 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 blah. Notice the new line there? So that's what's indicating that we got a whole line now. Unfortunately, the disconnect button doesn't work right now. We still haven't implemented that. But if you just close it, this is an instance of the, or a parent of the object, so it'll automatically close. But we're going to implement that anyway. So in our S interface, we need a bool close. We're going to refactor that. No, not like that, I guess. What are you laughing at, Harold? Alright. Import.close. Inside our dialog, you can now go sinterface.close. And in this case, I'm just going to return true. In a real application, you would check to make sure it's actually closed and return accordingly, and possibly emit an error or do a queue warning or something like that. But here, I'm not going to do that. Alright, now we can actually turn on LEDs. So I'm going to create a function called set LED state, and that's going to take a Boolean state. And if you're following along with the Arduino, you're going to have to open up the code and change the pound define to pin 13 or whatever pin your LED is on. Before this will work. And now what we'll do is we'll if state, we're going to go import dot write LED :1 \n. And does that all make sense to everyone? Alright. Now in our dialog, I'm going to drop a checkbox in here. And I'm going to say LED state, just by double clicking on that. And now in here, I'm going to change the name to LED checkbox, and I'm going to right click on it, go to slot, and I'm going to say state changed. Yeah, I'll just do state changed, and then I'll do S interface dot set LED state arg1. know if you all can pick this up, but when I press the LED state on the screen, see the LED come on and off? So now this could be a motor, or it could be a switch or something. It could be anything you want it to be. And then finally, we are going to parse this string here and emit signals for them all. So let's disconnect here and close the window. And first thing I want to do is drop a bunch of labels on here. So let's go label. Actually, let's drop 4 of them on here right now. Then I'm going to hit Control and select all the labels I just dropped on there. On the property window, down at the bottom, and I'm going to change this horizontal alignment, so horizontal center. And then I'm going to change the font size to, where's the font size? Under font, point size, let's do like 20. Okay, so this is, there we go. Let's draw this volts label. Temp label. So now we have 4 labels that we can put stuff in, and all named accordingly. Now I already wrote a function that does this, parses this out, so I'll just copy that in, and it looks like this. So I'm going to make 4 slots, each of which emits and carries a new value for each thing. So my Arduino is outputting values for temperature, RPM, voltage, and current. So I'm going to make 4 slots for those, or signals, sorry. String, RPM. So in a signal, you can actually emit and carry data structures. So you can send an integer or a pointer or anything you want. You can throw it in there, almost anything you want. In this case, it'll just be a bunch of strings. Alright, so we got these signals, and they're being emitted here. So let's cover this really quick. So we read in the string into this in-string variable. We split it into a list based on that comma. So remember when we were looking at the thing, there was a comma that indicated each parameter. So inside this string list is a list of strings that contain those key value pairs. And then we're going to get each string out of there in this for each loop, and we're going to simplify it, which takes out all the white space at the end and replaces it with spaces, and we're going to remove the spaces, and then we're going to split on the colon, and then we're going to check what type it is, which is that first indication at location 0. So paramList.at0 is always the type. We check to see which one it is, and then we emit accordingly the second value, or the index 1 value. So now inside our header file we have these signals created, and we emit them from here. When you use a signal, you have to use this emit keyword. And now our serial interface class should be completed. So now we just make slots that connect to these signals. So I'm just going to copy these over and put them under the public slot section of my dialog. And I'm going to call this slot instead of the same name. And then we're going to refactor these. And then we're going to apply it to the labels. UI.tempLabel.setText, and I'm going to say temp plus temp. So we're concatenating two strings and setting it to the text. And let's do the same thing for these. RPM label.setText. RPM plus RPM. UI.volts.label.setText. And then finally we have to connect them. So inside of our constructor in our dialog class, we're going to connect the S interface on new current. Now we got to do this for all of them. So there's an on, new, RPM. Temp. That's it. So if I connect to this, there's our values updating on our screen coming from the Arduino. And then there is also one more thing we can do really quick. Do void set update rate qint 32 rate. Refactor that, and we'll go import dot. Actually, I gotta create a string first. Rate string equals rate semicolon plus q string number. I'm going to convert this rate into a number, and we concatenate it with a new line. Right. Then we're going to write that out to the device. And I'm going to drop a horizontal slider in here. And the minimum value I set up inside the Arduino code is 50. That's 50 milliseconds. So I'm going to change the minimum of this slider to 50 and the maximum to 1,000. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to go to slot. I'm going to say value changed. And I'm going to do S interface dot set update rate. I'm going to pass the value. Run that. What's the problem? Oh right, I gotta. This has to take, the right function has to take in a byte array. It can't take a string. So all you do is you do dot to Latin 1, and that converts it to a Q byte array. So I connect to this. It's updating. I can set the LED state still, and I can change the update rate. So if you looked at the Arduino code, it would be every time you change the value of this, it would be sending something like this, like LED 1, LED 0. And in this case, I'm doing the same thing, and it looks like rate colon 1 2 3 4 whatever, and the Arduino parses that command and sets the new update rate. So now you can do the same thing that we learned here for TCP connection, or downloading files, or drawing images on the screen, or there's all kinds of stuff. 3D views, XML file editing, JSON. Qt is like a huge library. There's all kinds of stuff. So before we go, I'll show you some of the other stuff I've done. Q projects. So this is socket tester. This is one of my favorite applications I've written. Brian.
What's the hotkey to build?
Control R. Alright, so this application I wrote is a little socket tester. I haven't written the server part, but only the socket. So say you wanted to get the Google web page. So we can go www.google.com, and I can connect to it. Oh, IP addresses. Really? This might be an old version. Okay, in that case, we have to do ns lookup google.com, and Google is 216.58.219.78. So now I'm connected, and I can get the home page, http 1.0. There's our Google homepage I just downloaded in plain text. So I'll disconnect from that. Actually, they already disconnected. Here's the server interface for Roboboat. This was just meant to be a testing program for the server interface, but I made a separate little dialog to display the HTTP status codes and header information. These were the IP addresses of the server, and this was the ports. You could select the course. It won't work right now because it's not currently up, but you could do all kinds of stuff to test it. Anyone have any questions? No? Damn.
I think our minds are just all blown by your wisdom, Colin.
Yeah, I know, right? Alright, well that's good stuff. Now I'll leave this link up for a while if anyone wants to download it, or if Travis you want to put it on the drive or something.
Yeah. I'll put it up. I'll put it up on our Google Drive. If anybody cares to access that code, just email me. You should all have my email. I'm the one that harasses you. Says to come places. But yeah, if you want, just email me and I'll send it over.